Study Session 5, Arms of Government, the Legislature. Introduction. As noted in Study Sessions 1, 2, and 3, the term government could refer to a system of managing the affairs of a large political unit, such as a nation, a city, a state, or a village. In Study Session 4, we discussed the implication of fusing power in an organ of government. One of the panaceas we discovered was to divide the powers of government among its functioning lines. In this study session, we will explore how separation of power is structured in the most popular form of government in modern times, democratic government. When you have studied this study session, you should be able to describe the legislature as an organ of government, explain the typology of legislature, discuss types of legislature, and enumerate the functions of the legislature. Here is a tip. General structure of contemporary democratic governments. In the contemporary world, the most popular form of government is democratic government that is managed by representatives elected by the people. To ensure that these representatives work effectively and to control misuse of power and authority by them, the democratic governments are generally divided in three broad arms or organs or branches of government. These are legislative, executive, and judiciary branches. Description of legislative arm of government. Legislature is the organ of government charged with the responsibility of making laws as well as policy formulation. Despite the importance of this governmental institution, it remains the arm of government that is most hit and undermined by political instability. Take, for instance, in countries where military rulers also disband the legislature. This experience often affects the evolution of legislature adversely. Thus, this is the bane of development of African democracy because the legislature usually fails to perform effectively, particularly as it relates to the dispensing of its official duties or institutional functions. The art of lawmaking remains lackadaisical. According to Boynton and Kim, 1975, pages 16 and 17, legislature is very important in goal setting in any society. Inasmuch as the legislature remains the governmental institution that enjoys the exclusive right or rights to formulate policies and make laws, it holds a strategic position in the goal-setting process as well as decision-making of the government. Owing to the fact that laws are made for men, it will be imperative to always examine the continued relevance of all the laws made to the attainment of the goals and objectives of the government and the larger society. Consequently, any laws that have become moribund or no more useful will need to be abrogated, that is, abolished, or amended, that is, refashioned. The importance of legislature is also evident in its ability or power to change or amend legislation, as well as to abolish laws considered not useful for the corporate good of the society. The formal rules and informal conventions in the conduct of legislature business often look similar from country to country, but with little difference. The fact is that virtually all the existing legislatures in the world usually adopt one of the two basic models: the Westminster model, that is the British model, or the American model. Typology of legislature. The character of legislature varies from one country to another. In this segment of the study session, we are going to look at various types of coordinate character of various legislatures around the world. Type A. This explains the relationship between the legislatures and executive in terms of mutual cooperation between the two institutions, such that executive does not have overwhelming influence on the legislature. This category of legislatures enjoy considerable power to formulate policies without being challenged by the executive. Again, the executive always considers necessary the need to sample the opinion of the legislature before she brings any bill or legislation proposal to the parliament. According to Wenbom in 1975, page 36, Type A legislatures are usually cabinet governments where an executive is responsible both in form and substance to a partisan majority. It is important to note that the consent of majority in the parliament is not only sought through consultation of the members of the ruling party in the parliament. It may also involve a process of coalition and consultation of various parties in the parliament, but not as a matter of custom or convenience, but as a practical necessity. Type B. Here, we have the legislatures in which there is absence of mutual consultation between the executive and the legislature. The executive often uses party platform to evoke conformity among the members of the ruling party in the parliament. The party usually comes in to do the yeoman job in the parliament by prevailing on the party representatives in the parliament to do the bidding or request of the executive. This situation often results in the subordination of the legislature, particularly when the party that controls the executive also has a majority seat in the parliament. This was evident in Nigeria during the Obasanjo administration between 1999 and 2007, in which the president always mandated the party leadership of the ruling People's Democratic Party, PDP, to prevail on the members of the party in the parliament, who also controlled the majority in both chambers, that is, the House of Representatives and the Senate, rather than engage the legislators in effective consultation. Type C. In this case, we have legislatures that are less purposeful. These are legislatures that are subordinate to the executive. They don't have any minds of their own. They always do the order of the executive. They are rubber stamp legislatures. Here, we often have legislators whose primary concern is to satisfy their selfish interests, and advancing the interests of the people is most unlikely. The legislators always support the policy actions of the executive inasmuch as their sectarian or tribal or individual interest is guaranteed. Constructive opinion making is lacking, as primordial or primitive sentiments dominate the parliamentary affairs. There is tendency that in this category of legislatures, the parliament will be consisted largely of unprofessional and less intellectually sound minds. This form of legislature exists more in countries where enrollment of people into national elites give very little or no consideration to education, legitimization, and effective recruitment. Type D. In this category, we have legislatures which exhibit a pattern of interactions with the executive which can be described as fragile and mutable. Structural deficiency and weak value system dominates the parliamentary affairs in such political systems that have Type 4 legislature. The underlying element of this category of legislature is that there is absence of integration and control due to sectarian ideologies and primordial sentiments forming the core values which guide the political behavior of virtually all the legislators. According to Wenbom, Type D legislatures are for better equipped through powers of investigation and parliamentary interpellation to harass and obstruct governments. This category of legislatures hardly has members who have their minds of their own in parliamentary deliberations and resolutions. During the First Republic, deliberations in the parliament often took regional direction, where the major ethnic groups always pitched tents against one another. The situation created big problems for government at the center, and the parliament also lacked cohesion. A fight for political hegemony among the three leading ethnic groups within and outside the parliament created tensions in the polity and consequently led to the first military coup in Nigeria. Type E. This category of legislatures demonstrates a wide diffusion of power and fluid parliamentary majorities. There are usually conflicts between the executive and legislature. Political parties have very little control over the legislators in dispensing their institutional duties. The executive also lacks sufficient power to control the affairs of the parliament. Whenever there is no mutual understanding between the executive and legislature, the result is usually a deadlock, and the legislators may reject the executive bills. The conflict between executive and legislature is not permanent, it comes occasionally. Thus, when such conflict takes place, the executive often goes back to the drawing board to re-strategize and dialogue with the legislators. In doing so, the executive applies effective bargaining to bring the legislators to their side. And this is a way of enjoying favorable response from the parliament. Usually, it is when this is done that a mutual agreement is reached between the executive and the legislature. This form of legislature can be seen in some developed democracies like the United States. Types of legislature. Unicameral legislature. One chamber or unicameral legislature is a representative form of government with a single legislative chamber. In unicameral legislature, there is existence of only one chamber. It has most often been established in countries with a centralized or unitary structure. Countries with unicameral systems include Uganda, Costa Rica, Portugal, and Sweden. Bicameral legislature. In this type of legislature, there exist two chambers. This form of legislature can be found in several democracies like Nigeria, which has the House of Representatives and the Senate, Great Britain, with the House of Lords and House of Commons, and the United States of America, with the Upper House and the Lower House. In bicameral legislature, legislative business takes place in the two chambers that often operate independently of each other. The Constitution defines the power and the boundary of the two chambers as regards the dispensing of their political functions. In Nigeria, for instance, it is the Senate that has the power to approve the appointment of people into essential public offices, while the House of Representatives cannot perform such functions. By and large, the two chambers often work in harmony to carry out their functions. Functions of legislature. 1. To make laws for the state. 2. To amend the Constitution. 3. To control the executive, especially on the issue of political recklessness. 4. To control public expenditure, especially the approval of annual budgets. 5. To provide forum for airing political grievances and matters of public importance. 6. To scrutinize and approve the appointments to important public offices like those of ministers, ambassadors, judges, among others. 7. To appoint the Prime Minister and other members of the Cabinet where applicable. 8. To supervise and control government agencies. 9. To provide an atmosphere, or rather platform, through which public officers acquire the skills of public governance. 10. It has the power to sack the executive where applicable. 11. It has the power to dissolve the parliament. Study session summary. Thus far in this study session, the legislature was described as an organ of government.